Let me show you how we can optimize FC26 and how we can fix FPS issues and stuttering. So first of all, we're gonna open settings in the main menu in the top left corner. Then we're gonna proceed to settings and then open game settings. In here, if you use left bumper or L1 on your controller, you will be able to quickly switch to display or graphic settings. But we're gonna start with the display settings. Now, in this case, what you might need to do is switch the display mode to full screen if you changed it to, for example, borderless, because borderless can sometimes cause some issues with FPS. It might actually be the reason why you have certain stuttering and so on and so forth. However, of course, if you still experience these issues even with the full screen, then you can just simply switch back to borderless, or at least keep the full screen until you go through every other option that I'm about to show you in this video. So for now, we're gonna decide that we're gonna stick with the full screen. Now, of course, the screen resolution is quite important as well. Primarily, you want to use the same resolution as your monitor supports. So if you have a full HD monitor, you probably want to use this exact resolution that I have over here, 1920 by 1080. However, in some rare circumstances, you might actually want to decrease the screen resolution, although it will definitely make the game look a little bit worse because, well, we are using lower resolution. However, in order to avoid that, I mean changing or downgrading resolution, you can also use the render scaling option or the resolution scaling, so I'm gonna go into that in a second. Another quite important thing is the refresh rate. In the case of full screen usage, we have the access to refresh rate, and you probably want to have it set to the same refresh rate that your monitor has. So in my case, I have 75 Hz monitor, so technically I should be able to use this one. And in addition to that, we also have the frame rate limit. Now, ideally, you probably want to use unlimited. However, if your monitor supports 75 Hz refresh rate, then there is no point of having more, actually. So you can set to maybe 60 up to 90 FPS, and that should be fine. And over here we also have VSync. So this option is, most of the time at least, the reason why you may experience like stuttering or screen tearing or something similar. So if there are some weird glitches and issues with this screen, then most likely it is because of VSync either being enabled or disabled. This actually depends on the specs of your computer and parts, etc. So this is quite individual thing to set up. In other words, if you have issues with stuttering or something similar, and VSync is disabled, then you want to turn it on. On the other hand, if it's enabled and you have the stuttering issues, then you want to turn it off. When VSync is enabled, the frame rate is disabled because VSync pretty much uses only as much FPS as your monitor can support. So in this case, since I have 75 Hz, I will have 75 FPS limit cap, which is of course just enough. And yeah. So this one is definitely one of the main ways to fix stuttering. However, we're gonna keep going because there might be some other options as well that might help you. So let me actually get this back, and then we also have cutscene performance, which is something that is not really related to the gameplay. However, if you actually wish to have like a smooth visuals in menus and cutscenes, then you can actually switch from half frame rate to full frame rate, because in the menus, once you actually switch to the full frame rate, if your if your computer can actually handle it, then you will definitely see the difference. And although it is really nothing particular, nothing that much important, it is definitely pleasant to look at. So you can consider that, but keep in mind that it doesn't affect the gameplay itself. Although apparently it also controls frame rates in menus. Well, it includes menus, replays, and gameplay using set pieces or pro camera. So maybe it is actually recommended to turn it on, because so if you have like corner kicks or penalties, etc., then this can actually help. So besides that, we have that render scaling, not scaring. Render scale or screen resolution scaling is a simple slider that allows you to either go for performance by decreasing over here below 100% or go for the quality by moving above 100%. So if you decrease the render scale, you will you can definitely try to improve the performance of the game that way, but as a result you will decrease the image quality. So of course something for something. And in addition to that, there is also the dynamic resolution scaling, which allows the game to adjust the resolution in real time when frame rate is restricted due to GPU usage. And this can of course be the also the reason why you have like certain stuttering or certain FPS drops. So if your computer is good enough that it should handle the game completely fine, then perhaps the dynamic resolution scaling isn't really needed at all. Although when enabled, you can set the dynamic resolution FPS target, and this also depends on the performance of your computer, I mean the parts of your computer, and how well your computer handles this game. And in my case, I can safely set it to 75 FPS. I don't need more because, once again, because of the refresh rate. But even if I, let's pretend that my game doesn't work that well, and I don't really care about 75 FPS, then I can just decrease it, for example, to 60, and I can be completely fine with that as well. It's up to you how you prefer it. And alright, so after that, what you need to do is also go to graphics, and over here we have graphics settings, which is just also a primary way to one of the main ways to adjust the performance and the quality of the game, of course. And what you want to change here is actually individual as well, because depending on your computer, you might need to change things here and there. Usually, the safest way to actually play the game is by setting graphics settings, or the preset actually, to automatic, so the game can automatically detect the best settings for you. However, if the game fails on that part, then you can manually go through these options and adjust things manually. So you mostly go through these options in order to look at the CPU, GPU, and VRAM, how much these settings affect these parts of your computer. And another thing is that where your computer is the weakest one. So for example, if you have a pretty, maybe not bad, but a CPU that is not handling the game well, then you might want to change settings to where the GPU usage is essentially major, right? So we have like ambient occlusion quality and cloth quality, and the rendering quality, of course, which is actually major for every part. However, if your graphics card could be better, then of course we have an strand base here, and probably things that are moderate can also be adjusted, of course. But essentially here you can set up these options manually, and unfortunately I cannot exactly tell you what and how you should set it up, because like I said, it is very individual. Depending on how good your computer is, you might need to switch certain things to like I don't know, like high, maybe medium, and in some cases you can set it to ultra and it's gonna be just fine too. So that's why I cannot unfortunately show you exactly how to set these options. However, if we are talking about these options themselves and what they do, and what you can disable, for example, or what you can lower without losing too much of the visual presence, then I guess the strand-based here can be disabled. The grass quality can be set a little bit lower. The crowd quality can definitely be set to lower, because most of the time you don't look at the crowd anyway. The cloth quality can also be decreased. The motion blur can be disabled. I personally don't even like the motion blur, so you can disable it here as well. But definitely the biggest impact on the performance has this one, rendering quality. Alright, so once we are done with these options, then remember that you can apply these changes by pressing menu or options button on your controller, and you'll want to restart the game after making these changes. So most of the time, in order to see the difference, you will have to restart the game, which can be quite annoying, especially if you go through graphics settings. But it is what it is. We have to do that in order to make sure that these settings, these changes are actually applied. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, leave a like and subscribe.